You found ENEOS. You love the income. But then you saw the leverage on XSPI and XQQI and your stomach dropped. Too risky, too volatile, too much uncertainty. What if there was a way to keep the high monthly income from the boosted series and add a built-in safety net underneath it, all inside just two funds? That is exactly what we are breaking down today. And to do it properly, we went straight to the source. We sat down with Garrett Pella, co-founder and managing partner at ENEOS Investments, and asked him every question that you have been sending us about this exact strategy. By the end of this video, you are going to understand how these products work, why pairing them together might actually make sense, and most importantly, whether this fits your specific risk tolerance and income goals. Let us get into it. Welcome back to the Dividend Desk, where we build income strategies for real life. If you are new here, this channel is built around one core belief, that the best income portfolio is not the one with the highest yield number on the screen. It is the one you can actually hold through every kind of market without panicking and selling at exactly the wrong moment. And that belief is exactly what makes today's conversation so relevant. Because what ENEOS has built across their product suite is essentially a full menu of options, pun intended, for investors at every point on the risk spectrum. And understanding how those products relate to each other is genuinely powerful information for anyone building a long-term income strategy. Before we go any further, the standard reminder: this content is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. All investments carry risk, including the potential loss of your capital. Please do your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions. Now let us start with the problem that sparked this whole conversation. The ENEOS boosted series, XSPI and XQQI, have been generating enormous interest in the income investing community. The monthly distributions are high, the income numbers are eye-catching, and the exposure to the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 with a boosted income structure is genuinely compelling for investors who want their portfolio working harder for them every single month. But there is one detail that gives a meaningful number of investors real pause. These funds carry 1.5 times leverage. And leverage is one of those words in investing that immediately separates the people who are comfortable with it from the people who are not. And both reactions are completely valid. Leverage amplifies everything. It amplifies your gains in a rising market. It amplifies your income. And it amplifies your losses when the market moves against you. For some investors, that trade-off is perfectly acceptable given their goals and their timeline. For others, it is a deal breaker. And the question that kept coming up from the audience here at the Dividend Desk was simple. Is there a way to participate in the boosted series income without taking the full force of that downside exposure on the chin? The answer, it turns out, is yes. And it lives inside ENEOS's hedged equity income products, specifically SPYH and QQQH. So let us talk about what those products actually are and how they work before we get into how pairing them with the boosted series creates something genuinely interesting. The hedged equity income products were built in direct response to something ENEOS kept hearing from investors over many years. The feedback was consistent. We like covered calls, we like the income they generate, but we wish there was a way to use some of that income to buy downside protection rather than just taking it all as a distribution. That single piece of investor feedback became the foundational thesis for an entirely different category of product. ENEOS calls the strategy a put spread collar. The name is a mouthful, but the concept is straightforward once you break it down. The fund starts by owning the full benchmark. In SPYH's case, that means every single stock in the S&P 500, the complete index, nothing excluded. On top of those equity holdings, the fund writes covered call options on approximately 70 to 80% of the portfolio each month. That covered call writing generates income, the same basic mechanism that drives all of ENEOS's covered call products. But here is where SPYH and QQQH diverge from a standard covered call fund. Instead of passing all of that option income through to investors as distributions, the fund takes a portion of those premiums and uses them to purchase a long put spread. A long put spread means the fund buys a put option, which gives it a negative bias on the market, meaning it profits or provides protection when the market falls, and simultaneously sells a further out of the money put option to offset some of the cost of that protection. The net result is a defined zone of downside protection built directly into the fund's structure, funded by the income generated from the covered calls, requiring nothing additional from the investor. You do not have to manage it. You do not have to buy separate options. You do not have to time it. It is structural. It is automatic. And it activates precisely when you need it most, when the market is selling off. Now the natural trade-off is that the yield on SPYH and QQQH is lower than on the core covered call products like SPYI and QQQI. Where SPYI might generate income in the 10 to 12% annual range, SPYH runs more in the 6 to 8% range because a portion of the premium income is being spent on that put spread rather than distributed to shareholders. You are essentially paying for portfolio insurance out of your own income stream. The question every investor has to answer for themselves is whether that trade-off is worth it given their specific situation, and the answer depends entirely on what keeps you up at night. Garrett Pella described the hedged products this way. They are for investors who want to stay invested in the market, cannot afford to sit in cash earning 2 or 3%, but are genuinely concerned that markets are at risk of a significant pullback and want to sleep better at night, knowing that a portion of their portfolio has a cushion built into it. The hedge is not an inverse strategy. If the market drops 10%, SPYH is not going up. You are still likely seeing a loss, but instead of being down 10, you might be down 5. And for an investor whose primary concern is preserving the value of their portfolio while still generating monthly income, that 5% difference matters enormously, both financially and psychologically. So now let us talk about the combination that started this whole conversation. What happens when you pair a NEOS boosted series fund like XSPI or XQQI with a hedged equity product like SPYH or QQQH in the same portfolio? The thesis is elegant. The boosted series gives you higher income and more aggressive upside capture in rising markets. That 1.5 times leverage is working in your favor when the bulls are running and the income it generates is meaningfully higher than standard covered call funds. The hedged product sits alongside it as a counterbalance, generating more moderate income but providing structural downside protection that activates when the market drops. In a rising market, the boosted allocation is doing the heavy lifting on income and upside. In a falling market, the hedged allocation is limiting the damage. Together, they create a portfolio with a blended income profile and a smoother overall return stream than either fund would deliver on its own. To understand this properly, you have to think about what NEOS describes as a linear risk spectrum across their 3 product categories. At one end, you have the boosted series. Maximum upside capture, maximum income potential, maximum downside risk. At the other end, you have the hedged equity products, capped upside, more moderate income, meaningful downside protection. In the middle, you have the core covered call products like SPYI and QQQI, a balanced middle ground that gives up some upside to generate income while offering modest protection through the premium buffer. Every investor sits somewhere on that spectrum based on their goals, their timeline, and their genuine emotional capacity to hold a position through a 10, 15, or 20% market drawdown. The beauty of having all 3 categories available is that you can mix and match them to build a portfolio that reflects exactly where you sit on that spectrum, rather than being forced to choose between all in on income or all in on protection. One of the most important things Garrett shared in our conversation was a reminder that no investor should be putting their entire equity allocation into any single product family. The NEOS suite is not designed to replace your entire portfolio. It is designed to be a tool, a powerful and thoughtfully constructed tool, within a broader strategy that might also include plain index fund exposure, growth-oriented positions, retirement accounts, and a cash reserve. The appropriate allocation to any one of these products or combinations of these products depends entirely on what the rest of your financial picture looks like and what role each position is meant to play. Now, a question that came in from the audience that we put directly to Garrett. Can investors outside the United States access these products? The answer is that it depends significantly on where you are. Canadians in many cases can purchase US-listed ETFs directly through their brokerage accounts without needing a locally listed version. Europe is more complicated because of the regulatory differences across countries. NEOS has been looking at European availability, but has not yet made the move to offer locally listed products in European markets. For Latin American investors, there is actually a partnership in place through a local issuer that makes several NEOS products available in Brazil as locally listed ETFs whose single underlying holding is the corresponding US-listed fund. Japan is another market where a handful of NEOS products are registered with the Financial Services Agency, making them accessible to Japanese investors through local brokerage platforms. So the international availability is growing, but is not yet at the level of the major global ETF issuers, with full worldwide distribution infrastructure. Let us bring this all together because I think the most important thing to take away from everything Garrett shared is not just how these specific products work. It is the framework for thinking about how you construct an income portfolio around your actual risk tolerance rather than just around your desired yield. Every investor who gets drawn into covered call ETFs starts with the same question: how much does this pay? And that is a perfectly reasonable starting point. But the investors who build portfolios that genuinely last and that they can hold with conviction through both up markets and down markets eventually graduate to a more nuanced set of questions. What is the downside scenario for this fund in a serious market correction? How does the income hold up when the underlying index drops 20%? How much of my lifestyle or my financial plan depends on the distributions from this account staying above a certain level? And do I have enough structural protection in my overall allocation that a bad month or a bad quarter does not force me into a panic sell at exactly the wrong moment? The NEOS product suite, Core Covered Calls, Boosted Series, and Hedged Equity, is essentially 3 different answers to those questions built for 3 different types of investors. The core products are for investors who want a straightforward balance of income and market participation. The boosted products are for investors who want to lean into upside and are willing to accept more volatility to get higher income. And the hedged products are for investors who want to stay in the market and keep generating income, but need the psychological and financial security of knowing that a portion of their downside is covered if things go badly. The fact that you can combine them, as this 2-fund strategy of boosted plus hedged demonstrates, means that the framework is genuinely flexible enough to fit a wide range of investor situations. If today's breakdown helped you understand not just these specific funds, but the broader way of thinking about income investing as a spectrum of risk and reward rather than a single number on a yield screen, then this video did its job. Drop a comment below telling us where you currently sit on that spectrum. Are you a core investor, a boosted investor, a hedged investor, or some combination of all 3? We read every single comment, and it genuinely shapes the content we build for this channel. Hit the like button if this was useful, subscribe if you are not already, and we will see you at the next one.